Toby Cadman, who was Azam's lawyer specialising in war crimes, joining us now live from London. And I know that you were in Bangladesh, but were forced out, you say, because of complaints you made about the trial and the War Crimes Tribunal. So have you heard, first of all, from Ghulam Azam? What is the news you've got from Bangladesh?
Good morning. Well, this morning we've received only the reports through the media that he has been convicted of 5 counts, that he received the death sentence, but it has been commuted to 90 years. I've been unable to communicate with our legal team in Dhaka so far, but I will be immediately after this interview making contact with them so that we can start our prepares to mount an appeal.
What were the basis of the charges against Mr. Azam?
Well, the case against him is quite strange. There's very little direct evidence, and actually the judges, even this morning in reading out the verdict, noted that the prosecution evidence was not credible, which is why we find it rather bizarre that they've then gone on to convict him. But obviously that's something we will look at later today. The charges are basically that he had collaborated with the Pakistani military and that he was effectively what they've called the torchlight for enabling these crimes. But effectively what he's been convicted of today is failing to prevent. One of the many concerns that we raised during the trial was that there was no real nexus between statements that they say he made and the crimes themselves. So we are very concerned as to this verdict, and it really does go to show how politicised this process has been from beginning to end.
Yeah, this is basically about speeches he gave, articles he wrote, which were deemed to be incendiary at the time of the War of Independence.
That's right, and that's the position they've taken. But as we argued during the trial, unfortunately we were prevented from calling any real evidence in his defence. We were able to call one witness, which was his son. We were not able to call any other witnesses to put forward his case, even though there were almost 3,000 people who had agreed to come forward. We also had expert evidence to show that there was no link between his speeches and the crimes. But this is really a case where a man has been convicted for effectively opposing independence. The position that we've always taken is that the evidence presented, witnesses have perjured themselves. There have been conspiracies as to the conduct of judges and prosecutors, and so, as I said, from beginning to end, it's been a perverted process. But he has effectively been convicted for, as you say, statements that he gave. But once again, there is no connection proven in the court between those statements and what actually transpired. So it has never been disputed. If I could just say, It's never been disputed that these crimes occurred, and that the Pakistani military is responsible for a large proportion of these crimes. That point has never been disputed, and we've always maintained that this should be the subject of a trial. But because of how these proceedings have been conducted, we've always maintained that it should be under international supervision.
As a lawyer, you may knock me down for asking what you think is a leading question here, but when it comes to the protests on the street, would you say it's quite understandable that those who support Mr. Azam would like to go out on the street and voice their disquiet at this?
Well, I would say it's probably not unexpected. Bangladesh is a country that tends to exercise its democratic right by taking to the streets, as you've seen regularly. I mean, certainly I, for one, would call for peaceful demonstrations for those that want to demonstrate and exercise their right to demonstrate and voice their frustration. No violence is acceptable on either side, and we are expecting demonstrations from those that support Professor Ghulam Azam. And I imagine there will be demonstrations that those that are unhappy that he hasn't received the death penalty.
Well,
so
thank you.
What happens here will be a testful time for Bangladesh.
Mr. Cadman, we thank you very much indeed for coming on at this short notice. Toby Cadman there talking to us from London.